Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Come and Discuss Spurs. I'm your host Matt, and with me this week we have a bumper crowd of CADS with us today. So we have David Weeks. Say hi, David.
Hello.
We have Stu. Say hi, Stu.
Hello, everybody.
We have Adam.
Good evening.
And we have David Weeks. Oh, and say hello.
Me again.
No, sorry, David Weeks. David Nizik, I mean.
Yeah, it's
good start here. And we have Adesh. So yeah.
Adesh has finally got dressed.
It's been a long day, people. I'll see if I can hold it together enough to be fully coherent. You guys do the talking. I'll just knock them up for you. So yeah, this week, why I have it's a one-topic show, I would say, but a pretty interesting one. I think might generate some provocative discussion. So just to kick us off, I'd just like to read a quote to you all. The great fallacy is that the game is first and last about winning. It is nothing of the kind. The game is about glory. It is about doing things in style and with a flourish, about going out and beating the lot, not waiting for them to die of boredom.
Well, you just know that has to be said by a proper Spurs man, because
an
Arsenal fan wouldn't say that. It's definitely not been said by Mourinho, no.
No, exactly. So that's the question. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
Good to see you. So I was just reading the famous quote from Danny Blanchflower. Usually people quote it as the game is about glory, but the quote is a bit longer than that and a bit more meaningful and has some, I think, interesting things to say about our current situation. So, was Danny Blanchflower wrong? Is this the kind of thing that is a luxury for great teams, or on the other hand, an excuse for average teams to excuse their losses? So who wants to be the first to sink their teeth into that one?
I definitely think it's a bit of an emotional crutch, isn't it? And throughout my time in supporting Spurs, we've sort of made ourselves feel a bit better about not winning things by, but we play great football and the game's about glory and so on and so forth, when other less exciting teams have actually had nice days out, which we've had all too rarely. So I sort of think it's, had we been winning things a lot in the interim, we probably wouldn't be quoting it so much. I think we're only quoting it because we're not winning.
Well,
so, are we all united?
No, probably not.
No.
I think it's a bit. I think it's a bit of horses for courses or something like that, because whereas I can see the goodness of it when you beat Arsenal 2-0, you love that. That's marvellous. But when you nick a win in the last minute against West Brom, playing the same way, I kind of wonder whether we really need to be doing that all the time in every match. Or, another thing is when you get 2 goals up against Arsenal and then you park the bus, so you're not even playing counter-attacking football anymore. You're just playing 10 and 11 at the back. That's the bit I disagree with. So my sort of feeling is, okay, this season, if we win something, brilliant. Don't care how we play, about time we win something. And, all bets are off. But if we don't win anything, playing like this, then I'm going to be a very, very unhappy bunny. And I completely agree. Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, some of the tougher teams. Okay, you've got to be very, very pragmatic. But we've since the West Ham debacle, we've been playing like that in all the matches. And when we're getting ahead, we're not even playing counter-attacking football. We're just playing park the bus, and I don't like it.
I think it sort of depends on the opposition to a certain extent, right? So the opposition needs, when we're ahead, the opposition need to commit a little bit, right? So Chelsea didn't want to commit, and therefore the game just stayed that way. We said to them, go ahead, take a risk, go for goal, go for attack, and leave some holes. And if they don't leave holes, we just basically sit there. Or we try and hit on the break, but we don't try very hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, sure. But when we get ahead, 2-0 up against Arsenal, there wasn't really much interest in breaking them down. It was very comfortable.
No.
Make sure each
Fantastic
week
defending.
that quote is read to our opposition, right? So that they don't just sit back.
Yeah.
We need to inspire them to attack and put themselves in a place to be open to the counter.
Put it up in the away dressing room at Whitehall Lane.
Yeah.
Right.
Stu, what do you think?
I think one of the things is that certainly on Sunday, it looked like we were quite tired in the second half, and certainly I think if we'd had Ndombele starting and Lo Celso coming on, it would have made a difference. I think the frustrating thing can be that we do get opportunities where we could look to break, and when it falls through because the pass isn't accurate, or it's quite sort of high level of difficulty at times to actually start those breaks, and when it breaks down, that does get very frustrating. And I think that sort of was the case on Sunday. I think it must be a very mentally challenging way to play. I think the concentration levels must be huge to have to maintain that for 90 minutes. And you felt that they were physically and mentally tired on Sunday.
A very risky game plan.
Yeah, when you play 90
game plan.
When you play 90 minutes defending, someone's going to screw up.
Yeah.
At some point, it's like, and I don't mean Serge Aurier. I mean someone is going to screw up for sure. But anyway, it's worked the last few games. So.
If it's one of our players that screws up and we go 1 goal down, and we're not showing the ambition to go forward and do that, we don't have that attacking intent, then we're going to lose games. I mean, look back over our last few games. Chelsea 0. We barely had a shot on target. They looked the better side. They had the better chances. Beat Ludogorets 4-0. Ludogorets were terrible, but we weren't brilliant either. We weren't smashing in that game. Then Man City at home 2-0. Basically did the same as we did to Arsenal. We took the chances that came our way. They had good chances. Actually, I think probably Arsenal were better than Manchester City. West Brom, we nicked it in 80th minute or something stupid.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, we had to sit through an awful lot of drudge before anything came our way, and frankly, we did not look like we were going to make the breakthrough in that game. The fact that we did kind of says a lot. It says how far we've come, how mentally strong we are now. But is that what we want to be watching football for? I mean, if we wanted to be watching football for that kind of thing, how many of us would be Spurs fans and how many of us would be Chelsea or Man U, or
Bolton.
or Bolton fans,
But you're sort of mixing up 2 points there, Stu. So either it's a way to win games, right? In which case, and it's effective. Now we can talk about games taking a risk, sometimes it's not going away, sometimes it's going away. But this is a run that we can't dismiss as luck. We can't say that we're sneaking goals through. This is a game plan that works. I mean, it's been too long a run for us to dismiss it as anything else. So I think we really have 2 choices. Either we view this as a game plan that works, and that's something we're happy with, or that's something we're not happy with. But it works, right? I mean, it's effective. I think it has to be said though that we're in a bit of a groove. Sometimes you hit a patch of form, and it comes from playing a certain way, and you can sort of just ride that. And I think what Spurs are doing right now is they're just riding this. They're running along this groove where things are working swimmingly for the time being. At some point, it will stop working, probably along the kind of way that you're describing, Stu. But
we're in the groove. We've been playing some games where we've had good results, and they're good results. They're good, strong results. But these are teams who are coming at us. These are teams who will try and play football, who will give us a game. What are we going to do when we play Crystal Palace? Because Crystal Palace aren't going to play like that.
Before we got into this run of games, we were beating fairly weak teams and going, okay, what about when we get really tested? But now we've been really tested and we're passing this test too. I mean, I think it's a really weird season. It's like we've been softened up by Mourinho, right? Because we've had the sweet success of smashing Man U, a really nice, stylish win against Southampton, And then we played West Ham, and it was just like, okay, this is just, we need Mourinho style football to get us through a game like this, and then we've just been doing.
Yeah, I think that was a watershed match, wasn't it? That was a watershed match. That was like the one where, prior to that, well, up until the 15th or 20th minute against West Ham, we were playing some quite expansive, really attractive football. And then, for whatever reason, the wheels fell off. And it's interesting because I think that was maybe the last time Mourinho will do a kind of a romantic gesture of putting Bale on like he did just before the wheels fell off. And I'm pretty sure he really regretted that. Kind of thought I wasn't being Mourinho. I was being sort of, I don't know, a romantic football fan. And I put Bale on, and I let us carry on playing like that.
I'd like
and I
to
think
get
that was
Bale.
like, that won't happen again,
Yeah, I'd like to get onto Bale a little bit later, actually. But
well,
let's prompt Adesh. What do you think of what you're hearing here in the back? Paul.
Well, I think we were defensively fragile. Thanks. We've been defensively fragile for a very long time. I think if you want to win something, you need to build from the back. I'm hoping that this is just the start of an evolution. We're winning, but we're winning because we have some brilliant forward players that can hurt anybody. But we first setting out to sort out the defense, because I wouldn't want to see it continue like this. Because I watch football for the entertainment, and this is very harrowing, more than entertaining, to be honest. Except for the brilliance of Son and Kane and Ndombele now and then. But I'm hoping that it's the start of something, and that it's not going to be sway. It took us a very long to get defensively solid, so I don't think it's anything to say that it's going to take a long time before we develop the next stage of our game. We've got previous. It took us so long to sort off our defense. Hopefully we grow in this season to get the next phase sorted out. So I'm hopeful in that way, because I'd like to see us play to our full potential, and that means combining both aspects. We've got this new ruggedness, but also we have some really talented players in there. The Lo Celsos and Ndombele, they can do so much more. So I think for me, I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that it's a way that we're going to keep improving.
Does anyone really doubt that Mourinho is happy with what he's seeing? I mean, he kind of comes out of these games complaining, but it's sort of half-hearted complaint. Like against Chelsea, he was like, "Well, I wanted the team to do more." Did you really, though, Jose? I'm not convinced that you did. I mean, he's probably fairly happy. I mean, he's delighted with the table. And I imagine he's probably quite happy with what he's seeing. What do you think, Ashley?
First of all, hi guys. Nice to put faces. Yeah, all of you. Nice. My hometown team from Wales, Newport. So I'm in a situation where I have never seen Tottenham at the top of the Premier League or the First Division, and Newport top of always the fourth tier, second League Two now. I've never seen it, so I'm kind of ecstatic about that. Also, for the time I've been a Spurs fan, for the most part, I loved us. We'd win cups, and I loved it. We never were close, never close to a league title, Poch twice during those years, but for the most part, the last 30, 40 years, really not close, maybe third once or twice. So this is a whole new territory. And yes, I quote Blanchflower. I have a novel out. I quote Blanchflower in my novel in a very interesting way, his thing about style and it's about glory. For sure, that's stamped on my heart, But to be able to see us win and win consistently, this is something new. And I'm wondering if Mr. Levy said, you know what? Poch was great. We loved him. He's not going to take us to that next level where we actually have to be ballsy. We have to be brutal, leave out Delhi, put out Tanguy, put him on the bench, whatever. And he is being, I believe, brutal, and perhaps it's the step we need just to win something. And then I think several of you have already said, we hope we progress from there and maybe become a little bit more entertaining there. By the way, Bale came on in that West Ham game and could have scored a goal, should have scored a goal, and that would have we would have won that game. We would have gone up 4-2
would have been
or something.
a fantastic goal as well.
Fantastic goal.
I still wake up sweating, screaming with memories of that moment, because I was convinced that he was going to be the hero.
Fantastic feat, wasn't it? Fantastic feat.
Great narrative moment that was just like, you know, destiny.
So it's coming.
Well, Gareth made us wait the first time around the so-and-so. So, I mean, you know, I remember how...
21 games, was it?
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Ash, what are you leaning out of there? What is that?
What are you talking about?
Behind you, it looks like you're leaning out of like where horses.
Yeah, he was mucking out the horse box before he came on. He had the camera off while he was cleaning out the dung.
It's almost midnight here, guys.
Oh,
I've stayed up. This is I'm outside on my deck.
Oh, it looks. Oh, yeah, that looks great. And great, Dave. Good to see you. Another Dave.
Yeah.
And Adam. And Matt. Matt Stu.
Hi.
I think that Bale moment was almost like a little epitome of everything at Spurs. We almost had everything just for a moment. We almost had everything.
I don't want to say the word Spursy, so I won't say it. But that was classic Spurs.
Wait, it's almost there.
Do you guys know of it happened in Syria? I believe it was Roma 10 years ago or something. They were close to possibly winning. I don't even know if they won, actually. And the fans, maybe the reporters, were so nervous they wouldn't say the title. So they came up. Have you heard of this thing? It's called Trucca Trucca.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right? So Trucca for us this year.
I'm not saying it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've got this thing where I know Spurs memorabilia before any matches. I feel like I jinx it. So it's been awesome. I haven't worn it for months. My wife's pretty happy. But no Spurs shirts, cups. So I'm just keeping it going. I know it's stupid. I'm a scientist. I shouldn't be thinking about this stuff. But, you know, sometimes they overcome you. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just on the going back to the question of footballing style and footballing philosophy. I mean, this is classic Mourinho we're seeing, right? And some people, so just to put forward a counter argument, some people say, well, you know, what people are really complaining about is lack of possession. But we all know that you can ball the pants off people by playing possession football too, right? So possession is a way of killing a football game as well. We are definitely not playing that type of killing a football game. I mean, I think that, you know, in recent times we've become accustomed to a sort of strange. We've had a strange mode where there've just been a lot of goals going in, particularly in the Champions League. There's been some madness in football, I think, for maybe a couple of years now, in my sort of impression. And it feels like a bit of a throwback, like someone's actually found a way to just stop teams scoring again, and it seems that Mourinho is managing to make this sort of the philosophy seems to be starting to swing back the other way, right? A little bit. You can kill a game by defending, and our centre backs. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and I was just going to say about talking about the centre backs. I was about to mention that I think apart from it being like the way Mourinho has typically played in the past, he also has the players that he has. He doesn't have a pacey centre back. So, and I think that was something that came out after West Ham, is that, you know, move the whole block back so that Toby and Dyer don't get caught halfway up the pitch and with those old legs, which are actually half my age, but anyway, those old legs having to run back half the pitch to make tackles and things like that. And I think that's something he's changed, because he has to play with what he's got, and he doesn't have fast centre backs. So maybe if we get someone in,
he has two.
Wow.
But
he doesn't have fast.
Davinson Sanchez is in terrible
his
form.
form's gone off.
And Tanganga has been injured all season and is too young to really build anything on right now. So
and Rondon seems to have a bit of pace to him. I don't think he's a player that needs us to play a low block, but yeah, it's a bit early for him. Well, Rondon, I think, looks quite promising. At least doesn't have to work through a bunch of baggage like Sanchez seems to. And yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see with Tanganga as it comes back from fitness. But I mean, the fact is that Dyer and Alderweireld have been brilliant, or at least comfortable. They don't really seem to be particularly troubled. Yeah, and as long as we don't play Hart in goals so that people can shoot from anywhere and score, then we're between those three, it looks like they can rebuff most. I mean, how many crosses did Arsenal put in? I mean, okay, so you need a decent big centre forward to make that work, which they don't have.
You do, and there was a stat today. Only 3.5% of corners actually result in a goal, and crosses. It's 1 out of 49 to 90 crosses actually turn into a goal. So they kind of, they're not really that good. By the way, this is, can you guys see?
Yeah.
Hollywood Spurs, we design, LA Spurs, we design our own shirts every year.
Nice one.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Have you got permission, club? Because otherwise they'll be chasing you,
We actually did the first one. Yeah, we did a couple of years ago.
Cool.
They actually sent us free scarves as well. We're actually one of the biggest for that Champions League final. Our pub at the time has a maximum 200, and that's pushing it. We knew there were more. We actually had 1,000. We had to open up 3 other bars. We had 1,000. I don't know where they came from. 1,000. So we might be one of the biggest supporters clubs outside of the UK.
Actually, you make an important point. I think, at what point do we start developing come and discuss Spurs merch? Because I think we get to the 50 people, 50 views level. I think we're sky's the limit, and we need to start turning this into revenue, I would say.
Yeah. How do we monetize our?
Got to cash in.
We need a new server. We need a new server.
YouTube, I think YouTube can cope with the kind of traffic we're going to put on there. Anyway,
we can have our own monograms. I know what mine's going to be. It'll just be blowing smoke.
They're just disappearing.
I want to ask you guys what you think. Actually, I read something today. I just came back from. I have to finish a story on Gal Gadot. Pretty nice, huh?
That's tough,
I know, exactly. Well, we did a group interview earlier in the year, but she's gorgeous. She's unbelievably gorgeous up close. But anyway, I was reading something today, and I've noticed this when we're watching that low block, how Sissoko, who can't pass, can't shoot, can't dribble, but he is playing such a key role, screening that back four, and then also moving into almost becoming a third center back between the right back and the right center back. And it's fantastic. It just seems he's found a role that he's almost become indispensable now. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, he's another one we're playing to his strengths.
Skip. I think he's holding the spot for Oliver Skip.
I disagree with you that he can't pass. I think in our third, he's great.
I'm yanking his chain a bit, Dave.
Yeah, right. I mean, I agree with you, though. I mean, I don't want the ball at his feet in the final third, but in our third, I think he does pretty well. He's pretty composed. I'd rather have the ball at his feet than Son's feet, for example. I think he can pick a pass and has more vision.
But that thing I was saying about him fitting into that little slotting in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a factor to our success. I mean, he is right now, if nothing, not from the start, he's a great sub to come in and really change.
I think a lot of
it's been working that way.
I think a lot of the slating of Sissoko is a slightly out of date discussion anyway, right? Because it was mostly from when he was bedding in, and he was like player of the season, but to some at least. I forget which season it was now, season before last or something.
Wasn't last season, it was season before. He was really good. And this season he's shown some excellent stuff. And the last game, I think he's probably one of our best players.
Absolutely.
There's some fan favourites like Winks. Isn't well, maybe fans' favourite is the wrong word, but certainly Spurs boy. He was the problem between the Winks and Sissoko pairing. It didn't work. But Højbjerg, I think also makes everyone around him look better. Højbjerg is a brilliant signing, isn't he?
The thing I'd say about Sissoko is when he's defending, I'm not worried about the clearance. And with a lot of guys, we tend to clear it poorly. For all his technical flaws, he clears properly. It never goes directly to an opposition player to keep us under pressure. So he knows his role and he's there for it, and he's a superb athlete. He gives us presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think
his position
again,
could
it's
have
playing to your strengths.
His position could have been a position that Delhi could have picked up. At times we thought that this is the kind of place that Delhi could play, but Delhi just only seems to, I don't know one way of playing. And for all his technical ability, he doesn't, he'll lose the ball on the edge of the area and turn it over. Mora does it sometimes too as well.
So what do you think about Delhi? Do you think Jose can actually motivate him, get him going? I thought Bale being here would help him. Bale being, the gold standard of achievement at club football.
I don't see how Delhi fits into our formation. Frankly, I think he can be as motivated as you want, but I think he's a bit of a square peg in a round hole in the way we're playing. I think if you want someone to play off the striker, as he did in his whatever it was in the Leicester season, the Chelsea season, then great. But we don't have that. The furthest forward midfielder is Ndombele or Lo Celso, and they're certainly not just off the striker. It feels to me that if we had a number of different ways to play, and I guess this comes back to what happens when we play against the lesser teams? Do we at some point say, well, actually, we've got more than one string to our bow, and we can be a bit more expensive? Well, then maybe there's room for him. But if we're currently playing, I just don't see where he fits in the team.
I mean, I don't think I agree with that, because I mean, I've heard this. I understand what you're saying, but I think that maybe his big problem. So there's Kane, obviously, is a shoo-in, or Vinicius as cover, and then there are, I think, still two players behind him strictly, although Son is obviously the one that everyone looks to. So I think maybe Delhi's biggest problem is that Son is just way better right now and faster, and it's the natural position that he might want to be taking coming off the left. But or the third player. But I think that if Delhi wanted to, he could make that second or third spot behind Kane his. He's got the ability, but he doesn't seem to. He's not as fast as Son, so he can't do that. He's not as good a finisher. He's just not as good as Son. But he's and he doesn't seem to be prepared to put in the graft to have the other role up there. I mean, I think he could do it.
I mean, if you were to compare him with Bergwijn, perhaps then that's the person to compare him. The thing with Bergwijn, I think his output has been a bit disappointing, I'd say, in terms of from an attacking sense, but the amount of work he gets through and tracking back and come back to that concentration thing, I think he seems to be very tactically switched on and knows to track back and with Delhi, who knows, perhaps he can learn that side of things, but I think he's a bit more impulsive off the cuff.
He was a second right back a lot of the time against Arsenal, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He did an amazing job, but it all goes back to how much we want to attack. But Delhi just getting into the squad would be good, and and I'm going to say something might be quite unpopular, but I think he's more worth a place in the squad than Bale is at the moment on current form.
He's playing tomorrow, isn't he?
Which one?
Delhi's playing tomorrow. They've already said that he'll be starting the game. Him and Tanguy. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's right. So right now there's one spot for Mora, Bergwijn, Bale, and Delhi, effectively, I think, right? And obviously, so the fact that with injuries further down the line, we hope that Son doesn't get injured, but in a way, the natural replacement for him, if he's still got the legs, is Bale. And then but there's still this other spot, and I agree. I think that Mora and Bergwijn are prepared to put in a shift. Bale, So let's get into that then. Bale. So this is a bit of a puzzle for me. It's is he that good a player?
Yes.
Ashley's biased, so he can't speak. Ashley's got to recuse himself in this conversation. But is he that good a player? still, I mean, the legend, the reputation, the excitement about him coming back. I think maybe his main impact right now is just for the squad to go, look, we've got Gareth Bale. That means that we're serious, right? I mean, that seems to be the main role he's got right now.
I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced so far from what I've seen. And what I see and what I'm talking about is I don't see the hunger in him when he's playing. I just don't see him going after every ball, chasing it down 110%, as they say. And when that hunger goes at this level, you just can't turn in those performances. So I haven't been convinced so far. I mean, I tend to agree with you that Dele probably has more value to the team than Bale has recently.
I found just on the final point on Dele, I found it quite surprising when he turned up in the played in the last few minutes last week, and he looked remarkably casual. It didn't seem to have hurt his confidence. He seemed happy, relaxed, prepared to chip in. I almost want him to look more annoyed. I want this to have created a reaction. It just seems like the same old Dele, really, just the same as it does every other.
People in the club, from what we're hearing, is that he's had a great attitude to being left out, that he hasn't kicked up a fuss and he's got his head down and he's training as hard as he can. So I certainly wouldn't want him to be throwing a half and refusing to play, or saying I'm not travelling if I'm on the bench or stuff like that. I don't want to see that from any player. I want him to be disappointed, same as you, Matt. You should be disappointed that he's not making the squad or not making the first team.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't mean the kind of petulance where, let me put it this way. I think that what Mourinho is trying to do is try to get a reaction out of Ndombele, I think, and got the kind of reaction he wanted, or he bedded in and learned. And I think he wants the kind of reaction from Dele where Dele gets that little edge back to his game. This is not like he's going to be like problematic, but just that edge, something, a little bit of niggle, a little bit of fight, scrap. It just hasn't been there for a good year or two, has it really? Or we see it in glimpses.
Dele's better with that 5% nasty in him, isn't he?
Yeah, he needs a bit of devil, doesn't he?
The thing with Dele, I think, is this is still a very young man who has been through quite a lot in his life, has come through a lot in his life. Frankly, to get to where he has with everything that's gone on should just be applauded, frankly. I'm pretty sure this ain't going to break him because he's been through tougher situations. This is probably not a lot to him, frankly. So if he leaves, he'll go to another club. And he'll go to another club that spends decent money to get what is a very good player, and maybe that'll give him a bit more of a boost. I think he's a great player. I love his attitude. I didn't really like people. I never thought I liked people that bit sly, gave a bit of a kick, and then Dele started doing it. I was like, yeah, I like that. And then Lamella came in. And it's like, yeah, that's fun as well. And then the combination of Lamella and Lo Celso together is like, those boys are nasty, but it's good.
One of the ways that his game declined, in my opinion, though, is he has a tough time staying on his feet these days. He's always trying to draw a foul that's not there. Doesn't get the calls. I don't know if it's his attitude that turns off the officials, but he doesn't get the calls, and then he dwells on the ball these days. He just doesn't pick out a quick pass, and that doesn't work with the way we're playing. So
yeah, I agree.
I think those two things are not working in his favor.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the thing that he needs to work on the most. We all looked at Dele as being like in the Steven Gerrard mode, right? He started like Dele, very attacking, very exciting going forward, and then he learned a different part to his game as he got older, where he learned his positional play, but he also had this fire in him, and he passed the ball really well. And I think if Dele needs to start developing his passing skills if he wants to get into that team more than anything else. It's his passing skills.
He seems to have believe the hype a little bit.
If we're going to compare him to Gerrard, you've got to remember that I think it was Rafa Benitez called Gerrard one of the most tactically inept players he'd ever worked with. So there's room for improvement on that side, and he can get there.
Definitely.
And we can remember a few seasons back where Mourinho was completely slagging off Luke Shaw, and in a sense rehabilitated him and got him back. I mean, he's not not having a great season this year, and actually not last year either. But he did come back pretty strong after being rehabilitated by Mourinho. So I have hope that Dele will see more game time coming up.
One of the things that I take hope from is the way that Mourinho is, you know, he's a brave man. He doesn't screw around, right? He will, if he thinks that he needs to teach a player a lesson, he's not going to be too shy to do that. I mean, we all love Poch. Poch was brilliant. But if Poch were, you know, I don't think Poch was the man to shake a player out of a rut or to sort of bring him onto a different level by you know, right, mixing things up a bit. He's trying to do that with Dele. And again, coming back to Bale, I think Bale needs the same. They both look a bit too comfortable in their style, a bit too comfortable with their game. They're happy where they are, maybe they're a bit too content. I'm a little bit disappointed with Bale as well. That, I mean, as we were saying, but Bale, I hope that he had a point to prove. Maybe he still has that point to prove, but, you know, coming back comfortable in England, but maybe he's still playing golf. Maybe he's just not that bothered.
Yeah, I think Dave hit the nail right on the head. Just doesn't seem to have that. But, you know, it's still early, still coming back to match fitness, and I would love to be proved wrong, because he's just a fantastic player. But I see the same thing as Dave. He just doesn't look hungry.
He's had 2 years of pretty much all in action. He's been sat on the bench effectively for 2. He had a year where he was injured a lot, and then he's had a year where he was given no chances whatsoever. You know, it's going to take him time to get properly match fit and get ready to go. And I don't think Mourinho's the kind of guy who takes a chance on a player. And as David Weeks said earlier, you know, he did it against West Ham and it bit him in the ass. And I don't think he's going to be rushing to make the same mistake again. He'll wait until he's properly fit and showing what he can do in training, and then he'll give him more time.
The other thing, he's already got one game winner, the header, playing as number 9. He could have had a second one against West Ham. Yeah, I am biased, but I actually think he's a little bit doesn't have the confidence in his legs yet, you know, because he hasn't let go. You can almost see going, he's not quite there to let go, you know, open up his legs and really go. He's in great shape, you know. So my wish and my hope is that for the naysayers, he'll prove us wrong, and that he'll get some great winning goal or game-winning goal or something like that, and go, you know what, he was worth it. You know, I don't think
Bale's been playing badly at all. I think that at first he looked rusty. I think since he's looked active, but the problem is that I just can't see him getting picked by Mourinho, at least not for as long as we're playing like this, because there's no room for. He's not exactly been a passenger, but you know, people play the entire team is expected to work off the ball, and he's just not doing it. And I don't think it's confidence. He's just not doing it.
I think he must be lacking confidence in his body. You know, he must be like when he wants to sprint, he must be thinking, is it going to break down again? You know, that must be somewhere in his mind.
I believe that. Yeah.
Timo's Son at the moment, right? Son's world class.
You know,
I think that's his block.
Totally.
Yeah. I had heard a rumor, and I don't know if you guys have heard it, about just in the same vein, but going back to Dele, that Dele had actually said that, you know, he had these hammy problems, right? And they were ongoing and went during Poch's reign. And apparently he actually said, I've lost half a step, you know, if you think about it.
Okay.
You know, he used to be involved with Ericsson, whatever, in our counterattacks. You know, he's keeping up with those guys, you know. So I'm wondering if there's something has happened, and he's somewhat nursing also, beyond everything else, nursing something where he's not confident in his own health either, you know.
Well, I think
something that hasn't been mentioned yet that I don't believe has been mentioned at least is there's no fans in the stands. And these guys, in some respect, these guys are in it for entertainment value themselves. They like to be entertainers. They like to have that crowd glory and cheering their name. And maybe that's going to be something that kickstarts both Bale and Dele, that search for glory in the eyes of the crowd.
Yeah,
I think with Dele, we shouldn't forget as well that there was a quite long period where we had injury problems in midfield, and he did a job, and I don't think he was fit, and he was sort of in the 4-2-3-1, and for a number of games, and he sort of really stepped up to the plate there. You could tell that, you know, it wasn't his position, but he, you know, he was doing it for the team. I wonder how much of a long-term impact that has had.
Yeah,
I
Adam, wasn't there one game? Just sorry, there was one game where we played Chelsea, I think, and that guy Jorginho, and he marked that guy out of the game.
Marked him out of the game. Yeah, I remember
right?
that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he can do it too. Anyway, so I agree.
Yeah, but I think in that game, Jorginho was sitting deep and Delhi was a little bit more forward, and he just sat on him in his deep position. It wasn't marking him in a two almost. You know, he played almost
It's a different.
It's
Yeah,
a job.
marking him
He took
pretty
him out
high
of the
up.
game.
Yeah,
He took him out of the game.
Out of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got
Coming
to say
back
that
to
I
Bale.
absolutely love Delhi. Sorry, go ahead, Adish. Sorry.
So yeah, coming back to Bale, I think the reason he's on the bench is for those games where we can't break somebody down, and we rely a lot on individuals. And he's an individual who could come up with something out of absolutely nothing, and that's why he has his place on the bench. Because you need him for those Brighton games. He came up with a header, but he's just as likely to pop one in from 35 meters when you're not creating much. So that's why he's on the bench, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think it's been quite a few games since we've had to play possession football and break teams down, and some of these players are ideal for that, and that's one of the reasons why we're not seeing them very much.
It's also been a while, to be fair. Someone mentioned earlier about what happens when we go a goal down. Well, in the league, trying to work it out. I think we obviously went a goal down to Everton and didn't regain that, but I think we could probably all call that game a one-off. The other two games, I think we went behind are Man United and Southampton, and I think
you should go behind more often.
Did react.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at all the subsequent games, even the Chelsea draw, we've been sort of holding on, rightly or wrongly. So it's probably, as you say, it's probably not the circumstance in which you need Bale necessarily to come on. You want people who could do the Lucas role of sort of chasing back, but also very dangerous on the break, you know, because of his pace. So perhaps we'll see more of him in, at the weekend and beyond.
And I also think that injuries, you know, we've been riding our luck a little bit with injuries. We're gonna see injuries to one or two key players, and I get the sense that, you know, with someone like Delhi or Bale, to sort of regain that physical bravery, they need to be out there in matches, playing and play themselves back into form. Training pitches all very well and good, but it's not the same. It hasn't got the same bite. By the way, with Bale, it does remind me a little bit of when he was a kid, because he went through a period of getting a bunch of injuries and sort of hiding away a little bit. And somehow we should ask Mourinho should ask Harry Redknapp what he did, because somehow Harry Redknapp just got him to just go for it. He just brought him out of his shell, and that's when Bale really went crazy.
Didn't he tell the other players to kick him in training and just stood over him and said, "See, get up and carry on playing"?
That was definitely it. The other thing I think was he was always constantly fixing his bonnet, you know, and putting bobby pins and stuff. And I think Harry called him out on it, you know, said, "Fucking forget about the hair, you know, and get up off the ground." And he did.
Yeah. I wonder if Bale is a bit beyond that now. He's a bit too much of a superstar for the...
He's still got the bonnet and everything. You know, he's still got that whole thing going on. You know.
There was one season, I think, and I couldn't tell you which one it was, where it felt like he went from a boy to a man, and I wouldn't like to speculate as to quite what his regime was to bulk up like that. I'm sure it was all just hard work in the gym. But it felt that suddenly that was it, and now here was this athlete, whereas before he was a bit more of a sort of a bit of Anderton type, almost a bit sort of leggy. I wonder, are we being a bit unfair with how much his game relied on his athleticism? And he's a bit older now, and he's a different player. I think he's from what I've seen, he's got a lot more close control and skills than he used to. Previously, it felt to me that when he was at Spurs, he passed him and just burst past with,
pace and power, wasn't it?
Brute strength. Now I think his game's a bit different, and perhaps we're judging him on the Bale of 6 or 7 years ago, and he's a bit different.
I see what
Anybody
you're
else
saying up to a
sees?
point, but he started out that way, but he didn't stay that way. I mean, looking at the old highlights reels, I mean, he scored all sorts of goals. He was an incredible striker of the ball. He scored all kinds of long range goals, free kicks, and all over the place. I mean, some absolute screamers. I think he had great technique, and he was certainly capable of all kinds.
That, I think.
Sorry, I didn't catch that one.
Coming up to a free kick on the edge of the box, I still get very excited every time he's over it.
But not just dead balls, though. I mean, I take your point, but I don't think he was that reliant on athleticism at the time either. So I think that he's, in the intervening years, he's shown when he's actually played pretty good, technical quality that's got him through games and made him exceptional. But yeah, no, I take your point. Is if he's missing that, it's going to make a difference.
Can anybody else see real similarities between the way Bale used to move and used to go past people and the way that Reguilón does now?
Yeah, I do see what you mean. He does have that kind of coming from. What you mean early on with Bale when he was still.
He's got like that. He's got that body shift and that burst of pace that just blows people away.
He's that country dog that you haven't seen anybody else do.
A rugby player. I mean, his best friend was the Welsh captain, was it Warburton something. I mean, he's built big like a centre on a rugby team, and it's just power, his legs and his upper body. And have you noticed how he runs too? He runs kind of upright, guys like Georgie Best and other guys would sort of a little bit more bent over. He runs upright like that. So Reggie's great. I love Reggie, but I don't think they're the same players. Physically, a little bit different.
Yeah, physically different. But I think the way you play,
Reggie's also been knocked off the ball a couple of times. Have you noticed when he goes up?
He has a bit of strength, I think, but that will come. I'm sure. He's 11 games into Premier League career. I'm sure he'll get used to the physical demands.
Yeah, some players take a season to adapt. He looks fit and ready to go now. He's been amazing for us.
He looks brilliant.
I think we'd be lucky if we've got him next season, because if Real Madrid don't get him back, it'd be nuts.
He's got a high bar, hasn't he? In terms of, I think there's more to come, and that's quite an exciting prospect because he's pretty good now.
I would like to think that we have
I read somewhere he has the clause whether he has to still agree to going back. And he must be loving life at the moment. Obviously things can change, but would you want to go back to Real Madrid at the moment?
They don't even play cricket there.
He won't go back there while Zidane's manager, because the problem he had before was with Lucas Zidane, Zidane's son. They had a big bust up. And from that point on, Zidane said, well, I'm not going to put you in my team. So, but I think we all know Zidane's not long for the Real Madrid job.
But I hope that we have an option on Reguilón. I mean, none of us, we could talk about what's in the papers and stuff, but none of us really know what's in those contracts. It's not really Levy's style to not have an option. I'd be quite surprised if it was out of our hands.
Well, he's not
sure what you mean by an option. He's our player.
So why would
because Real Madrid
got an option.
Real Madrid have got a buyback clause with a fixed fee.
Oh, okay. So very similar. Apologies.
So which can be used any time in the summer for the next 2 summers.
What if he doesn't want to go?
Yeah, he has the option to say no.
Yeah, but he's a Madrid fan, and if Zidane's not the manager, it's a difficult question to ask, I think.
But still, how much do we know about the details of that, right? So,
hey,
Matt,
could we ask about what we think about Mourinho? Because I know I certainly loathed the guy before, and I was just like, no way, don't even bring him near our team. So 11 games in?
Sure. I mean, I think we sort of got into that a little bit at the start, just in terms of the philosophy. A short word on that, but we should probably begin to wrap it up and look at the next games coming up in a moment. But so
just the one point on Mourinho I would say is what's refreshing now is that the conversation is pretty much what happens on the pitch, and you can agree, disagree about the style of play, etc. what the conversation was 6 months ago was about the man and not about what was on the pitch. And I think that's a really positive step. That we you know, there's so much in this world that is about personality and celebrity and all the rest of it. I think it's really nice that those people that didn't like him because they didn't like him,
right,
are now changing their view. It seems to me, and yeah, giving him a crack at the whip.
Good point. Yeah.
So his
And I was
attitude
always
is so different compared to Manchester United and last Chelsea go and stuff like that. He seems really happy, and I wonder whether it's just simply being back in.
Do you also think do you think he's mellowed a bit with having that year off? He seems to. You don't know, because you have a bad result or two. Who knows if bad you know?
I think he's a man that likes to have a certain amount of control, and I think he's got that at Spurs. So he knows he's the main man at Spurs. And, you know, where things went badly Man U, or things turned sour at Chelsea or Messi at Real Madrid, they were all sort of situations where the special one was being, you know, his specialness was being questioned a little bit more maybe, whereas, you know, Levy's, I think, backed him very, very well. And he knows that he doesn't have to...
He got a dose of humility. I mean, he loves to count off how many rings he's run, right? But he found out pretty quickly that evaporates pretty quickly in with the fickle fans sometimes. And he was kind of a nobody before the Spurs job. I mean, who cares? Mourinho, he's all washed up. And I still hear commentators saying he's washed up and he's a dinosaur. So I think maybe he got an injection of some humility there, and I think it did change him. He does seem more mellow and does seem to be more cognizant of the image he's putting forward, at least. He's still, as we talked about earlier, he doesn't lack courage. He doesn't lack courage, and I do appreciate that about him. We already had that discussion.
He's a funny guy. He's a funny guy.
He's very funny.
When things are going well,
yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll wait and see when things start to, if and when things start to go badly, then maybe, you know, but he's one of those managers that isn't necessarily around for a huge amount of time, because things start turning against him. He will maybe begin to, you know, call out players in a more reckless way publicly and stuff. Stuart's biting his tongue about this one.
If you look at his CV, right, he's won a lot of things, but he doesn't have that legacy job that he wants, that puts him in the same bracket as Ferguson and the likes, you know. And
does he want that?
That completes it. I think that completes it, his whole CV. I think that completes the whole picture that he's looking for, you know. Won everywhere he's gone, and then created a legacy somewhere that people, you know, were not used to winning, and turned them around and created a dynasty. That's missing. It's missing. I don't know if he sees it that way, but I'm seeing it like, if I just look at it, he's missing something, and that's the thing that I think he's missing, and it probably drives him. I hope I'm right, because that works for us.
Absolutely.
Motivated, Mourinho works for us, but who knows? Like you said, the track record doesn't really help my argument, but I'm just looking at it a different way.
Hey guys, time out. Thank you so much for letting me in. I got to get to the story. Miss Gal Gadot is waiting for me. It's great to see faces, by the way. Thank you so much.
I pity you,
keep Gal Gadot waiting. She'll kick your ass.
It's really lady. What can I say? No kidding. Wow. Something else. Cheers, guys. Come on, you Spurs.
Go back to your Hollywood lifestyle, Ashley.
Yeah,
man.
Good to see you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So I can say that I've semi-interviewed a guy that went on to then interview Gal Gadot. I never thought I'd be saying that. Right, so the glitz has left the room, but we can, I think, wrap it up ourselves. Sorry, you're just not competing with that. So yeah, maybe we should begin to wrap things up. I mean, okay. This is a bit of an open-ended question again, but I'm curious to ask it. You hear sometimes, quite often, people still talking about the title race. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win the league. I'm not saying that, and I'm not even saying that that I necessarily think that we're going to be tight in it. But do you not think that we have a right to be mentioned in that conversation, right? How, and it really frustrates me. It reminds me of a season a few years ago against Leicester, where it takes so long for the pundits to talk about us in that conversation. So, I mean, we're hearing it in a pundit discussion the other day, and they were like, well, Liverpool, obviously, but maybe Man City will come in the action, and possibly Chelsea. You're like, hello, we're here. Should we be taking
Fine by
seriously?
me. That's fine by me if they're not talking about us, as long as we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating in a way, you don't think? Like, we've earned it, it's not fair, and not that I really care that much.
I mean, if you look at the people that are saying this, and if you look at the other things they say, I'm not going to lose too much sleep if I disagree with Jamie Knapp on something. There's a long track record of me disagreeing with Jamie.
He was talking total rubbish, wasn't he, last weekend? Total rubbish. Changed the strikers.
Bad as Souness.
Talking about? Worse this time. Just shockingly nonsensical punditry. He just kept harping on about how you swap Kane and Son to the other side, and that's it. Like there was nothing else, no other differences. Anyway, any final words on
I'm more shocked when he talks sense.
Yeah,
I'm more shocked when he talks sense, man.
True.
Common sense isn't that common anymore.
He wouldn't have a career if his surname wasn't Redknapp, frankly.
I wonder if he's being a bit feeling for his cousin a little bit. He seems a little bit biased. He's a bit pro Chelsea right now, it seems to be. But anyway, so are we in a title race?
Yeah.
Yes.
As much as we were when Leicester won it.
It's almost 2021, and we're there.
Season ends in a 1.
Even if we were third, we'd be in the race. We're still in the race, right? That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's why you're in a competition, to win it, right? So we're in it to win it, but that's the same as any season, really.
I don't think there's many.
But winning begets winning.
Got a good chance.
That classic saying, "Winning begets winning," and I do see. I mean, the Cons strung together 3 shutouts like that, three clean sheets in a row in the Premier League. I don't know the answer to that, but it's been a while, and I think the confidence that's brewed by that is significant.
We also have the strength in depth that we haven't always had before. Like sometimes we've had a really, really good first team, but then you get 1 or 2 or 3 injuries, and there's and then you're found out because on the bench or in the squad there's not the quality. But we've actually got backup everywhere more or less. So we shouldn't get derailed by injury. So we've got a much, much stronger squad, and if we could add a central defender this transfer window, that would be cool.
I mean, I'm more worried about Højbjerg and Lloris. I'm not so worried about the centre backs because I do think Rondon to come in, and I don't think Sanchez is that bad ultimately. I think he just needs to build some confidence. But if we lose Højbjerg,
Sanchez is great. He's a great player. He's just playing so badly and for so long.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah, I think we've got CB. But we lose Højbjerg, and I mean basically we're hoping that Lo Celso.
That's where we'd come unstuck.
If Lo Celso can do that job, then maybe. I think he's got it in him. But
the one thing about the thing about strength and depth, and it's a different season, isn't it, to previous, in that the games are concertinaed for everyone in the teams that play in Europe into a much shorter space of time, so the recovery time is less. And I will admit that I am basing this on 11 games, and that's not really a big sample. And I'm sort of fitting the data to fit the narrative. But I do wonder if the style of play that we play compared to the style of play that Liverpool, for example, plays, is actually a factor, or will be a factor in terms of injuries as we go on. And the fact we're playing in Europa League as opposed to the Champions League, which means that the intensity potentially is a bit less. There's a bit more chance for rotation in those midweek games, and the way we play, we're not doing as much pressing as Liverpool. Maybe that has been borne out so far, or maybe it's luck. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Liverpool and Man City aren't doing as much pressing as they were. It's true. It seems like for a sort of tired, grueling season, our game plan is better suited to that, even if some people might find it a bit boring. Just going back to our old conversation. So let's start to look at the upcoming games then. I think that Europa League, we haven't really talked about it. I think Europa League is a really a form book apart. I don't think it really comes into the equation. It doesn't really impact our league season. I think I'd quite like to skip tomorrow's game against Antwerp. So then, yeah, well then who knows what happens there. So Crystal Palace next away. So that'll be a difficult game to continue with our sort of defensive game plan, particularly because the Crystal Palace will have the same game plan. So it's going to potentially be a really boring game, really boring, and they'll be at home. So theoretically, the onus is on them. But then again, I think it might be we'll sort of cancel each other out, and it'll be a bored draw. Any comments about that?
We win that game, then we actually really do start to look like a side that could win something this year. Because if we can go out and we can put away a team that's going to be playing for a point, then that'll be worth it.
I think that the main worry would be again that we're in this groove, and I'm wondering how easy it would be for us to shift gears and play a different way. I think we have got it in us, that we've shown it earlier in the season, but I'm not sure if we'll. I'm not sure if Mourinho will be ready to change the game plan to that extent. I hope I'm wrong.
The interesting thing is Hodgson seems to have changed his game plan, because Hodgson was very much the 2 banks of 4 and 2 players up front, but and hunker down and try and get a goal and make that count. But this year things seem to have changed, and he seems to actually be going for it a bit more. And with players like Zaha and Eze, then they may actually come at us, which would be interesting and make it a more fun game.
I imagine we'll be quite wary of their pace. So compared to and there are probably lots of very quick players who play for Burnley and West Brom, but it feels to me
Burnley
a slightly different prospect from those games in that they're, I'm not sure Palace are going to lump it up to they've got Benteke, but I'm not sure they're going to really lump it up to the big man and go for knockdowns. And so it's a different challenge, that Dyer and Alderweireld might face than those other games. Them against Zaha, there's potential there for problems, I would say.
But that might, given our pace, that might lead us to try and play a deeper defense. Or I think, I can imagine us being maybe set up to play on the counter, but with a real sort of a real focus on the fast counter, right? So basically say, okay, when we lose possession, we drop deep and we try and invite them onto us a little bit, but then really, defense turned into attack. The best form of defense is attack. But so that's you know what I'm trying to say. I think I'm mixing my metaphors a bit there.
It's Mourinho that got that one mixed. I think he thought the best form of attack was defense.
Yeah, that's what I mean to say, isn't it? But yeah, so the emphasis will just be on really, really fast breaking, I guess, if we're going to try and play that way. But yeah, so or we bring in Rondon perhaps as a centre back. Brave move, but I think it might be the right one. Should we move on to the next game? So the big one, Liverpool-Tottenham. That's going to be a classic Mourinho game, isn't it?
Well, hopefully.
Well, I mean, he will attempt to set out that way, right? Whether it works or not, I guess we'll see.
It'll be a game very much in the mould of Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea that we've seen recently. Good time to play them. They've got some injury problems. So,
although they don't seem to have been particularly derailed by those, have they?
Yeah, they've been making very light of it, haven't they?
Yeah, their sort of young players have just seemed to fit in brilliantly, which is a worry, because I was pinning my hopes on the fact that all their defence was injured. But
I think we're still the form team, though.
Oh, yes.
I would say. So, they're us and Chelsea, apparently, surprisingly. But yeah, okay, only marginally ahead of Liverpool. But yeah, no, they do look quite scary. And And we're talking about games that really set down a marker. I mean, that's the one, isn't it?
But even in our low moments last season when we played Liverpool, I think both games, okay, so they dominated, but we could definitely have got something from both games. That Lo Celso chance at White Hart Lane makes it 1-1. And even at Anfield, I think I'm trying to remember, but I think we did okay. I think that perhaps we need to. We're a bit scarred by sort of 2-3 years ago when they seemed to just run through us, and you'd like to think that he'll have a plan for them.
I will say this though: their makeshift defense hasn't come up against Son and the likes of Son and Kane. They've had a good defense and they've been doing a job, but have they faced anybody in that time that's Kane or Son? I'm not sure. Yeah,
we haven't. We've talked about those two surprisingly little, haven't we? Because they are an absolute phenomenon right now. And you go into any game thinking, yeah, game on. So maybe the one last
I think
game.
they'd be wary.
Yeah, maybe just briefly, Leicester. Any thoughts?
Leicester are still an aberration, aren't they? They're a side that shouldn't be doing quite as well as they are. Vardy is a player who shouldn't be scoring goals the way he is. Shouldn't have as much pace as he still does at his age. He's a pain in the arse player to play against, and I suspect that might be the area where our defence comes unstuck, because he's just going to niggle and niggle and niggle. So it's going to be an interesting one. If we can,
I haven't seen much of Leicester. What's Leicester's game plan these days? What's the secret of their success? Is it on the break again?
Still punt the ball long and get it to Vardy.
They've got Maddison and Barnes that creative. They have a good balance. I think mostly they play on the counter attack, but those two players pick their passes pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think the danger is those three players. The rest of them are good, know their work, know their jobs, and work really hard. But everything comes through those three players, and well, almost the same can be said of us.
So we'll be at home. So the onus will be on us, but there'll be fans in the audience. So that will in the crowd. So the home crowd will be there. That would be nice. Hopefully that holds.
Satisfyingly noisy. Just 2,000 people. I thought they made quite a lot of noise last time out, didn't they?
They were supplemented by the audio system, weren't they?
Oh, were they? I didn't know. I didn't realise that. Okay.
It seemed that way.
Sense. That makes it less astonishing then.
There seemed to be some sort of piped-in electronics. I'm sorry.
I said the South Stand is meant to be built for its acoustics. Put all in the South Stand.
I could have sworn I heard some such strange cheering at times that I thought that maybe they're still piping in the electronic stuff as well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I think that's
apparently they're using a new system that's led by the people in the crowd, and it kind of tries to follow them from there. So when someone starts a song, then the song is played through the speakers as well. Things like that.
Yeah, I'd like them to cut that.
It's a polite song. I presume the speakers aren't that clever.
The referee's a jolly nice chap, actually.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying the jeering when someone messes up. The sort of snide element that you get from a real crowd. It's really missing from this electronic stuff. Anyway, I think that
Chelsea against Leeds, when they were well, it wasn't quite high pitched booing at Llorente. That was brilliant, and even though it was Chelsea fans, that was like the highlight of the match, I think.
So I think we should call it a day. I think we've given our dedicated but small audience plenty to think about there. So I think we should aim to reconvene before the busy Christmas period, and we can talk about some of the excitement to come then, and our wins against Liverpool and Leicester. I won't ask you to make predictions because, let's just I haven't got the nerves for it. So I will bid you all good evening, good late evening, and thank you very much.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Nice
Come on,
one.
you
Everyone.
Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Once more.